The views expressed in the interviews and commentary are solely those of the individuals providing them and do not reflect the opinions of PPS Holdings Trust, its affiliates, subsidiaries, or employees.
I'm here.
So, I wanted to talk about wealth management, right? How do we manage our budgets? How do we manage our salaries? Can our salaries even cover everything? And if they can't, what do we do? What are the first things that we get rid of? Let's go, KG.
Important one. I think it's actually a really important and broad topic, especially in our country. So for me, having the right tools in place really help you budget well. And there's different generations, various things that you can consider. You can use self-help tools. You can use your advisor, which is extremely important, and I find it very helpful. And from the banking side, you can use your banker.
Yes.
If maybe you don't qualify for private banking, you can speak to your consultant. So those little things help you because in my mind, ultimately, they all integrated and interlinked, right? So whatever you pay from the banking side sort of touches what you can invest or what you can pay towards your life cover. Yeah. So very important for me to have the right tools in place. I do think that we need to always make sure that from your salary, because it won't cover enough.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you have a portion. There is obviously the golden rule of 30%. You can have your own, depending on how your cash flow looks like. So I think in a nutshell, what I'm saying is use the tools that work for you, that can help you, but always make sure that you do have the right person and the right support to draw up the right budget.
What do you do as an individual?
Myself, I started very early. I've always been passionate about saving. I have a very good saving ethic. I struggle sometimes, especially when things happen and you want to get yourself one or two things.
Yeah.
But I always make sure that I'm very proactive with my budget. So what I'll do is I'll know if I need 30 grand in June and it's Jan now, I'll split it up and then make sure that I'll compromise certain things. Yeah. So normally I'll have, let's say, 5 savings accounts. And then if I need to bump up the one, then I'll just cut maybe number 5 and say, I'm going to compromise number 5 for 4 months and allocate that to number 2. Because I allocate them for different projects. Yeah. So I use different tools. I use my advisor. I use my banker. And more than anything, I use the app. The internal tools in the app. You get different ones that you can use, and they'll tell you this month you were over budget. So it scores you on average. This is how much you spend on groceries. You spend on average 1,000 a month, but now you went 5. Or sometimes you spend more on takeouts, and then you can then go back and say, I need to readjust this. So I use different tools to help me budget. I don't know.
I got one thing that you made mentioned to right there is goals. Having specific goals for your saving, for your investing purposes, to be honest, because wealth management isn't as simple as I want the highest return. It's not. You need to understand also, okay, what am I taking on to get that, to be honest? What is the time frame that I'm looking at when I want to access my funds? Those are pivotal. Those are very, very important, to be honest. And you don't understand how many friends I've spoken to. And as soon as you start bringing wealth management, investing, they're like, I want a return. I mean, you can just go put your money in the lot and flip a coin, to be honest. You understand?
But
it's that easy. Have specific goals. And also one thing, like, KG, you like the cream of the crop because you have everything in order. In South Africa, we generally don't have a savings culture.
No,
we have a spending culture.
Paycheck to paycheck.
Definitely, just to put it into perspective, only about 6% of South Africans can actually go retire and maintain the lifestyle they lived.
And that's a shocking stat.
I think maybe to backtrack a little bit, I think the most important question for wealth management is, what is your definition of wealthy?
Right.
And that's going to differ from person to person.
Absolutely.
So like for myself, I'm a numbers guy, I'm an Excel spreadsheet guy, but I hate being like you, where like this savings account, that's it. I love automation. So in my mind, the way I work it out is I've set percentages and I automate everything.
Absolutely.
So like I've set up the debit order that goes into the savings account to force me to save. Otherwise I'm going to be like, okay, let's buy this. So I think that's important, automation. And then how I try and do it is you keep fixed expenses around 60%. You save about 20%, and then 20% that's left you call guilt-free spending. So that's a concept coined by Ramit Sethi. He's a good writer. But essentially he said that 20% you could do whatever you want. If you want to go watch movies, you want to go watch a sports game or buy yourself something, you have that guilt-free spending and that's your budget. I think that's a more responsible way for a general South African to take it, because not everyone wants to be in a spreadsheet or an app. But if you have like a little allowance, you guys remember when you're at varsity or at school, your mum gives you allowance and you spend your allowance. So I think bringing that culture back is going to be something to sort of remember, and like you know that because you've done that since you were a kid.
I think as young people, the biggest mistake we make is not putting money aside for that guilty pleasure. We think, by the way, money that's left over, this is what I'll spend. But it accumulates. It's a lot of money. I mean, if we go shopping, if I say I'm going to X store to buy a pair of jeans, I end up buying t-shirts and other stuff, but I didn't budget for them. But if I say I walk into the mall and say, today I'm spending 1,000 rand and I'm sticking to my 1,000 rand, that will help a lot in, this month I didn't meet the budget, this month I exceeded my budget. But for me, how I plan my budget is on a piece of paper. I'm very traditional. I have a book, and that book every month I write, it's July, this is my budget, these are my expenses. As I go through the month, I take everything one by one. Have I made this? This is where, for petrol, for example, it's not the same every month. Then I have an extra 500 rand. Do I put it in savings, or is there another emergency that I need to attend to? So I'm very traditional like that. Obviously, the banking features help now and then, but I stick to my book. It will never derail me.
That book is a tool. To my earlier point. It depends whatever tool you want, what works for you. Automation. Automated debit orders, whatever you want to do, stop order. That really helps. So well done.
What I'm picking up here from a wealth management point of view, I think two principles I'm picking up. Number one, it's all about sacrifice. You have to choose what you're going to sacrifice. And number two, it's about consistency. You're going to have to look at how this is succeeding for you. Personally, I'm still trying, guys, with budgets. I'm trying. I'm honestly trying. I'm honestly
not only you.
And there's a good point that we made in the beginning that we have to consider the economy of our country and the cost of living right now. Some months I feel like, okay, we got it. I mean, we got through debit orders, we got through groceries, and we had a bit to do everything else. And then the next month, it's the same salary. And I'm just like, okay, so...
where did it go?
What's in the bank?
This overdraft looks nice.
What's going on? So it's like you have to find your own rhythm. It's about how you create your own algorithms and how you teach yourself. You have to always go back and be like, clock yourself. I just spent another 200 extra that I didn't. So everything you take from one pot affects the other. So you're always going to have to kind of create some kind of structure and framework to keep yourself.
I think that's why defining what wealth is to you is very important, because I think it's very easy to just go over budget or spend on stuff you like. And what South Africans tend to do a lot, and I'm guilty of this myself, is I get a raise and then I inflate my lifestyle. So in other words, I spend more money because I have more.
Trying to meet the...
But you're not supposed to do that. Like, get your standard, stick to that a bit. And sometimes you just have to stick with the standards you had last year for another year. And then all of a sudden you're richer.
And sometimes that happens unconsciously. Like, you don't even realize you've upped your lifestyle, and then all of a sudden you're like,
you have other brands.
Like, what have I done?
Shopping for a car.
My budgeting approach is very similar to yours. Like, I like the automation behind it. I like setting it up in my bank account, saying, take that from the beginning, because if it's in my account, I'm going to spend it.
Absolutely.
So it needs to be removed from my account so that, I know that it's safe. I know that it's in a savings account. I can leave it there. So when you get a raise, actually, we should increase that proportionally to your raise, which is a tough thing to say and admit to, because I mean, as soon as you get a raise, you're like, oh yeah, I can spend this.
But I think another mistake we make is that we budget according to our peers. So I see KG is driving this fancy car. I think I can afford it. Meanwhile, I have, for example, I have 2 kids. I have family that I need to take care of, which won't work. Our scenarios and situations back home aren't the same. Our bills are not the same. So That is a no-no.
You know, I'm actually going to murder that because as you're about to say, I was about to say it, but there's no blanket approach.
No.
There's no blanket approach. On my side, like I like having a close relationship with my advisor, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the end of the day, they customize whatever the solution is to what my need is.
Yes.
Where I'm at in my life.
Yes.
The age where I'm at, where my expenses, and they assist me with that, to be honest. So it isn't about, okay, cool, let's put your money here, blanket approach, everybody's doing it. It won't work because your life,
Absolutely.
I mean, you don't sweat as much as me. You don't things like that. So everybody is different. And we need to identify that so that we can actually get ourselves a customized approach for me. And I feel like that's where that sense of uniqueness comes in. I mean, all of us are trying to be special in our own sense also. Look at our outfits.
Exactly.
We're not all seated here in the exact same t-shirt and pants, so why should our finances be treated like that also?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I have a question.
I think what's very important is we need to educate our friends and peers, right?
Yes.
Because like we said, stats are shocking, and if there's one thing you must know, that there's life after retirement. Even our parents, I mean, we see it, some of us come from, you know, the dusty streets of the townships, and you see people retire and 2 months in, there's nothing, you know, and it's sad. And again, I just want to highlight 2 points around the tools, using a book, automation. Some people still put money under the bed every month or in a cupboard. So whatever that works for you, customize it for yourself. And also very important, you spoke about goals. I think we need to always make sure that we plan our savings differently. So for short term, medium term, long term, and always make sure that there are savings that you don't compromise.
Yes.
Bank, no matter what happens, just make sure that 500 goes to my retirement annuity or whatever the case may be. But just make sure that you always have something that's fixed, that's not going to be disturbed. That will really help.
So one cool concept that I've implemented recently. It's called a sinkhole fund.
Nice.
Which essentially is like a
You like the whole things, ne?
Yeah.
Is it?
So the sinkhole fund is essentially, it's like a short-term saving, which like at the beginning of the year in December, I have these like events, that guy's turning 21, I have that marriage in Cape Town, I'm gonna have to fly there. So you do like a rough calc, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna need 10,000 Rand for the year. And then you save every month a little bit to that. And whenever you have to go somewhere or you have like a flight to book, then instead of funding that out of your cash flow, you fund it out of the sinkhole fund. So then your budget remains the same in the month, but you have this dedicated fund that you can use for these once-off expenses, birthday presents, stuff like that.
Planning. Bring it in.
That's brilliant.
That's a good one. Practical.
I have a question about what about people who are freelancers who don't have a consistent, the same amount of money coming in every month? And also, what about people who live off of grants? And what I want to ask you is, if it were you that was a freelancer, or you were a financial advisor and you got paid off of commission, or if you were to decide, I don't want to work anymore and I'm going to live off of the 350 or whatever, what would you do? How would you guys navigate that? What do you think?
That's tricky.
That's very important. And I think, one thing for me is, sometimes there's just not enough to save. And sometimes you need to accept that. Right? You want to do that, and from a grant perspective, you've got all these commitments and there's not enough to save. You're a freelancer, you don't get a fixed salary or fixed income. Again, to my earlier point, structure it according to you, but always make sure that the little bit that you can save, you put it away. Sometimes, and I don't know who mentioned it, but we make a mistake of following our peers and say, I want to save 500. Sometimes you just need to save 25 bucks. I remember when I was still in high school, I used to save 5 Rand a week, 5 Rand a day, so which was 25 Rand by every Friday. And in a month, that was 100 bucks. So from the 350, if you put away 10 bucks, you have something by the end of the year. So I think it's extremely difficult, but I think you always need to try and make sure that something goes to an emergency fund. It's really difficult because there's not enough funds, but you need to always try.
And with that being said, the freelancer point that was brought up, where your income is fluctuating, I feel like having a separate savings bucket is pivotal there.
Absolutely.
It is so important there because you don't know what's going to happen next month. You don't know what's going to happen the month after that. So whenever you get that project and, okay, great, I have some free cash flow, structure accordingly. Okay, 10 to my fixed expenses. Put that aside. Okay, great. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few months, so let's put some money aside again. And whether or not I'm actually going to hit the project again next month, you think it's the exact same. You think it's the exact same. Put the fix aside. Make sure that I have sufficient funds in the event that I don't get projects in the future, to be honest. There's a few like jobs that's commission based as well, etc. And sometimes, like I said, your commission is going to be booming. Don't go spending that money now. Don't increase yours.
Even though it's fun. Even though it's fun.
I would rather say spend the money when the next one comes, when the next income comes and you've saved this extra 500 Rand and you wanted to buy a new pair of sneakers. Rather wait for the new income to come and then you can spend the one that you've left behind.
But the point I wanted to make to all of this is, I guess, whether you have a stable salary or whether you're freelancing or you're fluctuating, it's all about making it your own. It's all about practicalizing it, because we can sit here and talk about how you can save 500, 2,000 and this and this and this, financial advisors. If you have 350 and your intention is to have some kind of safety within that income, whenever it comes, you need to find a way to practicalize it and make it like work for your own. If you have to spend it month by month, like paycheck to paycheck, how are you doing it? If you're saving from some of this, how are you doing it? At the end of the day, it's about your decision, your intention on how you want to see this thing roll out. I can say splurge it. I can say 350 in a day, go for it. And you can go for what I'm saying, because it sounds great if someone else is saying it, but what are you holding yourself accountable to? What does it take for you to see this taking you through so many other days and not really looking at your peers thinking, she got 350, but I see her with snacks every other day. It's different. So be practical to yourself and be true and hold yourself accountable too, because then we just go and be like, I mean, YOLO. I mean, today I have 350, I might not have it tomorrow. So let me just squander it today.
Let me go shopping.
I think what happens easily is when you live paycheck to paycheck, which I think it doesn't matter what your salary is. Everyone can do that. It's very easy to do that because that's sort of how we get used to it. But what happens there is you go over budget a few months and then you get a paycheck behind. And that's when people start using their credits and stuff like that. So maybe just to mention that, because that's a very important point. If you have credit that's drawing a lot of high interest and you have your credit cards almost maxed out, pay that off first. Like, don't build an emergency fund necessarily whilst you still have a lot of credits. Don't use credit to build an emergency fund. Get that out of the way as quickly as possible.
But
then, and just don't spend the money that you're going to get. I think that's the mental trap. You know you're going to get a little bit of a bonus. It's Christmas time. So let me buy the presents in November because it's cheaper. Don't do that, even though it sounds clever. Because you're spending something you don't have yet. And then when you get that cash, you spend it again.
Or sometimes it doesn't come.
Yes.
If it's a performance bonus, it might be lower.
You think it's there and then your performance is bang average.
Exactly.
100%.
I think another point you mentioned, I don't know how you guys feel. I mean, I'm posing the question, how do we feel about credits?
I was about to get to that point because we've spoken about so many other things. Then I have a credit card, then I have an overdraft. What else is there? How do we manage those? Because these are essentially used as like a soft, like a landing pillow, should I not have everything in order. So then how do we, as young people, how do we go about with an overdraft?
Well,
like, so as much as I have my banker to explain that to me, but on a more practical level, like how would you say I have a credit card that has like 20 grand? So then my salary, credit card, so how would you practically use it?
So on that, right, credit isn't necessarily bad. It becomes bad how you use that credit, to be honest. So, I mean, if you're going to be splurging it, you're going to be having fun, going out for drinks, spending it on everybody else, you're going to sit with that liability up until you pay that off. So there's a lot of benefits to it in regards to freeing up funds, possibly to put it into a separate project. Maybe you're looking at getting yourself a little scooter, renting that scooter out, making a separate income from that. I mean, that's good credit that you're basically putting aside. Whereas if you're going to be spending it on nonchalant type of things, you're going to put yourself into a position where we're going to be living month to month and paycheck to paycheck because you're paying all of these separate things off. But
it's important not to live beyond your means, stick within your lane. But also important thing to note around credit is your credit score. So for young professionals just starting out in the workplace, you need to start some sort of a credit or credit account or whatever, even if you take out like a 10,000 Rand amount maximum. Doesn't have to be anything huge, but to bring up your credit score in order to apply for your house or your flat that you want to buy or rent or whatever, it's important to kind of build on that. And I've heard a few young professionals actually mention that, like everyone's saying a credit score. How do I get a credit score? Like what does it mean? Like how do I know it's a good credit score? And also to do some research on when to pay it off, when's the best time to get the best credit score, what. So that's also an important thing to consider. Credit's not always a bad thing. It can be used as a tool.
You need credit to get a good credit score.
Yes, 100%.
So but that's why discipline again is sort of like, that's why I like the automation approach. Other people be very cognizant of what your credit is and then how to pay it off.
No, absolutely.
But it's like, just make sure you meet your payments. Like,
but then guys,
I know a friend that never paid his, like at varsity, he had like a
Yes.
He never paid that thing, but then all of a sudden he can't get a good loan for his house because he didn't have his account when he was 20. Now he can't buy a house at a good rate. So like, be disciplined.
But then guys, now here's the question. Now I have a credit score, right? How do I maintain that? How do I keep a good credit score? I know one of them is to pay on time or just before, or like use credit but you don't use all of it. So how do I keep a good credit score?
So I think it's important to look at credit in two components: good credit, bad credit. Like it's always important to use credit to build your wealth. You can take a facility. So let me use myself as an example. When I was starting out as a young professional, I do have some investment properties, and you want to get assistance from a bank to create wealth. But what you do is, especially if you're thinking of letting the property, you get sufficient rental, and sometimes you do run through cash flow shortfalls and stuff like that. But you use that and then you pay it back, and then you're able to use your own salary to save towards whatever goal. So I think it's always important to think about these things in a way that it will help you ultimately build your estate and your wealth. And I think you asked something around how do you maintain good credit and stuff like that. One personal opinion is, try avoid high credit utilization. I think in simple terms is like, you've got a 2,000 Rand limited, you take stuff for 2,000 Rand. So that's like maxing it out. So always try use a proportion of it and then pay it back, because it's also cheaper to do that. And lastly, my other personal opinion is look at the type of credit you take, the different facilities. You get an overdraft, you get a structured facility, you get a revolving credit. You get a personal loan, you get short-term loans with like really high interest. So it's always important to check what project are you focusing on. Are you looking to buy a car? Are you looking to renovate your mom's kitchen? Does it make sense to take a short-term loan about 50 grand and pay it back in 60 months or etc.? So always look at what is it that you need, what makes sense from an affordability point of view, and very important, with a good credit score, you can also negotiate with your, the funder for a lower rate. And that's what I've experienced, that if you maintain a good score, you can get a good credit interest rate. And it's not only with credit that you build it, even when you conduct your check account well, which is one thing that the youth doesn't understand. And I want to share it with you guys. Check account builds your score, right? So, and personal opinion, I started using a check account when I was young. And what it does is it does that. You don't have to have an overdraft all the time, but once you have a good check account, it builds that up. And by the time you ask for funding, you get access to a small facility, which then helps you build up your credit. So it's those little things that help you as a young person. And it's always good to do research, speak to the right people, understand. So it's helped that.
Literally just comes back to those goals again.
Those goals.
It just comes back to those goals.
What do you need?
Underpins everything. Find the reason why you're taking out this credit. Once you determine that reason, do some research on it, and then sit back. I mean, you have some time, to be honest. You don't have all the time in the world, but don't make a hasty decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Because as soon as you start making hasty decisions, that's when you start regretting. That's when you start not trusting people. That's when you're not trusting institutions out there.
And yourself.
And exactly.
Start questioning stuff. Exactly.
That's why the framing of wealth is so important.
Yes.
Because like you said, if you start comparing yourself, and this guy is driving the nicest car, but meanwhile he has so much debt trying to pay off that car because he's trying to impress you. So don't put yourself in that same situation. Define what your wealth is.
Exactly what you
Be
want.
very purposeful with it, and then build up to it. Sit yourself in your shoes 10 years from now and think, what is the rich Theo in 10 years? What does he look like? Like, what does he have, or how much savings does he have? How's his retirement looking? And then work towards that in a planned manner, I would say.
Okay, so did we cover everything?
Did we cover everything?
Did we?
We got everything?
On budgeting?
I believe so.
I think we covered everything on budgeting.
Yep. I think so.
Awesome.
Use the
Thank you.
tools that work for you. Yes.
Practical.
Be practical. Yes.
Hi there, my name is Ernest Losper, and everything that was discussed was our own personal experiences. It was not constitute as financial advice in any shape or form. Contact your financial advisor for more assistance, and let's get that wealth management going.
Awesome.